Office of the Tax Ombud. I'm the I'm the acting manager, contact center at the Office of the Tax Ombud. I will request that we record our question. If you have any question, just put it down. Let me do the presentation until the end. You will ask me questions after the presentation. As I indicated, I'm here to do the presentation about the Office of the Tax Ombud. Just give me a sec. Okay. As the Office of the Tax Ombud, what do we do? What does the Office of the Tax Ombud? Is to assist the taxpayer who have a complaint or tax complaint against SARS. So any complaint regarding SARS, it's welcome to come to the Office of the Tax Ombud. So we also review any systemic issue relating to service matter or the application of the Tax Act or procedural or administrative provision of the Tax Act at the request of the minister or at the initiative of the Tax Ombud with the approval from the minister. Normally what happens, if we receive lots of complaints, we do have a team which do the analysis of the data or the complaints that we receive from the public or taxpayers. So if there is a need, if we identify that there is an emerging issue regarding the service, procedural and administrative, we do initiate the investigation to emerging issue by getting an approval from the Minister of Finance. Sometimes if there's lots of complaints which is maybe submitted to the Minister of Finance can request the Office of the Tax Ombud to also do the same investigation and assist if there are lots of complaints that they are receiving from the public or taxpayers. Just give me a second. Why the Tax Ombud was established? So the establishment of the Office of the Tax Ombud was in October 2013 to enhance the South African tax administration system and to play an oversight role over SARS. What does that mean? Before, there was no office which was available for a taxpayer to run to if SARS is failing to assist them or if SARS is failing to resolve their issues on time. So in October 2013, the Office of the Tax Ombud was established and it started functioning during that time. So since then, we have been dealing with the complaints received from the taxpayer or from the public with regards to the complaints. We also work with SARS to promote the service excellence and procedural and administrative fairness. So promotion, we for the excellent service, because sometimes when the taxpayer come to us, it's either SARS is lacking on the service side or there are issues which they submitted to SARS. It can be a procedural matter or administrative matter. You find that SARS is delaying to resolve those issues. So when we come to us, we try and assist SARS to provide excellent service by finalizing those queries which were submitted by the taxpayers. It's either to SARS, and then once we intervene, we highlight or indicate to SARS where they are lacking so that they improve the services from their side. We are also committed to maintain a balance between SARS power and the duties on the other hand, and the taxpayer's right and the obligation on the other hand. This one is a very important one because we try to balance both sides. Sometimes you find that, yes, the SARS might be at fault, and also the taxpayer, they have the right and obligation also to submit whatever information that's required by SARS. I can give example with updating of the personal information. Sometimes you find that taxpayers delay to update SARS with their personal information or to submit the banking details. So when they come to us, we do guide them. If there is a need for that to be submitted on time, we will advise or provide guidance or recommendation to the taxpayer to say this one need to be submitted on time. In a simple example, as a banking details, hence I highlighted the banking details. In terms of Section 23, all the taxpayers, if your personal information, it can be your physical address, your contact number, any information with a SARS position, if it changes, the taxpayer, it's required to update SARS with that information. Why should you use the Office of the Tax Ombud? Our services are free. So from our side, when you come to us, we don't charge anything because our services is for free. And when you submit your case, we make sure that, as I indicated, that we make sure that SARS provide excellent service to the taxpayers. And we, through our intervention, we have assisted a lot of taxpayers to get their refunds, to get the objection finalized, and etc. And also to make sure that the queries submitted by the taxpayer to SARS are resolved on time. So it's not only about the free services, it's also the intervention of us to make sure that SARS finalize the taxpayer's query or any submission submitted to SARS. Sometimes you find that SARS is delaying because of the taxpayer, maybe they're failing to submit something. We do intervene and assist for the taxpayer to adhere and submit the required information to SARS. Accessible, we are easily accessible. We are situated at second floor, main lane corner, main lane. If you want to come physically to our office, you are welcome. You can also contact us. I will share the contact details on one of our slides. However, it's 0800 662 837. So you can contact us. You can also send an email to us. You can visit our website. You can also submit the complaint online. We have an online platform where taxpayers can go SARS, or if there's a service failure from the SARS side, it can be a service procedural or administrative. You can approach us. Dealing with one person, here we refer to the cases which are accepted, that once the complaint is accepted, you will be dealing with one person until your issue is resolved. So when you contact us, let's take, for example, Obedient is the person who's dealing with your case. I have done the review on your complaint, and then I have sent the recommendation to SARS. So when you follow up, you want to know the progress. We can give you the progress as a contact from the contact center side, or we refer you to the person who's dealing with the case. Usually, if there's more information that's needed, or there's a clarity seeking on your complaint, or maybe on the feedback that was sent to the taxpayer, we request the specialist working on the case to provide you with the detailed feedback, or to explain, or to provide any clarity that the complainant is seeking or needing. Have access to SARS system. Here we refer to the cases where we receive from the complainant or the taxpayer, and it falls within our mandate, and we have to do the investigation or review. We have tested, we have done everything, and we find that. So obviously we need to start with a review. When we do the review, we have access to SARS system. So what do? We check the facts submitted by the taxpayer, and also the facts from the SARS system. What action did SARS take on the query or request that was submitted by the taxpayer to SARS? So hence we are saying we have access to SARS system. And if you indicate to us to say you have submitted something and provide case number, we are able to go to SARS system and check what happened with the query that you as a taxpayer, you submitted. When can you lodge a complaint about SARS? So the taxpayer can lodge a complaint against SARS or about SARS to the Office of the Tax Ombud after the taxpayer have exhausted the SARS internal process, or unless if the taxpayer have compelling circumstances for not exhausting the SARS internal complaint resolution. What do we mean when we say the taxpayer must first exhaust the SARS internal process? Firstly, you must have an existing query with SARS. Secondly, your query must still be active to SARS unless incorrect decision was taken on that query and you have raised it, but you are not getting any assistance. And then thirdly, you have made a follow-up, you are not getting any assistance, and you have approached the SARS Complaint Management Office. So if you have approached the SARS Complaint Management Office and the turnaround time of 21 business days has lapsed, you can refer to us. So we'll say you have exhausted the SARS internal process. The second part is unless if you have compelling circumstances. Here we refer to the issues or the queries where maybe you, sorry about it, you have referred the query, you have not exhausted, but you have existing query with SARS, and you are not getting any assistance. And if that matter does not get any attention, it might cause undue hardship. So in that situation, if you come across that matter, some of the issues that we have identified systemic register, where we do investigation and do the register for the systemic issues. So you can come to us. I will give example with the delayed refund. In 2017, the conducted an investigation regarding the delayed refund, and that was also identified as a systemic. So if you have a delayed refund and SARS failed to pay the refund within the prescribed turnaround time, it can be 21 working days, it can be 3 working days, depending on the type of refund that you are waiting from SARS, you can approach the Office of the Tax Ombud and we look at your complaint. How to lodge a complaint? We do have different platforms where the taxpayer can lodge a complaint. Here we indicated that you can click to lodge a complaint online or download a complaint form. So if you visit our website, you will be able to click. Even if you can click on this link that is appearing on your screen, it will take you through to where you can lodge the complaint online, or you can download the complaint form and complete it. If you opt to download the complaint form and complete it, you will be required to email it to our email address, which I'm going to share on one of the slides that we have here. So once you submit it, and then we will capture it, and then we'll start communicating with you, and we will inform you. And after you have completed the complaint form, please make sure that you complete the form in full. You include your tax number and desired outcome and more relevant information to your case, which maybe we might not find it when we access the SARS system. Preferably, when you complete your complaint details, give us the relevant reference numbers from SARS, so that when we do the review, we also go through those cases to see that what happened, so that when we make a recommendation, it's based on our findings and facts that we found on a SARS system, and from your side as a taxpayer, you submit it to the Office of the Tax Ombud. And please make sure when you complete the complaint form and submit to us, sign and date the complaint forms. You will see there's a declaration part at the bottom of the complaint form. There's a declaration for tax representative, and there's also a declaration for the taxpayer. So if you are a taxpayer and you didn't appoint anyone to submit the complaint on your behalf, you have to declare under the taxpayer declaration. So if you appoint somebody, obviously we will also need the power of attorney accompanied by the certified copies of your ID and the person that you are going to appoint to submit the complaint on your behalf. So that's how we do it. Yeah, so the complaint, after it's submitted, it will be captured. After it's captured, it will be sent to the complaint resolution specialist. It's a unit under operation. Their responsibility is to review the complaint that falls within our mandate, and the taxpayer meet all the requirements for us to review such complaint. So here you will see how does the OTO process your complaint. So this process, it takes place after you as a taxpayer, you have submitted the complaint to us. The first thing we do when we receive the complaint, we will ask ourselves on the first step the following 3 questions. The first question, we will check whether the complaint it is against SARS or not. Because other taxpayers, they do come to us, you find that they submit the complaint which is not against SARS, and it's not relevant to the tax. So unfortunately, if it's that, it does not fall within our mandate. The second question that we'll ask ourselves, does the complaint relates to the application of a tax act? Some they do submit, you find that yes, it's under SARS, but it's something else. They do submit such complaints. And then the third question we ask ourselves, does the complaint relate to service, administrative, or procedural issue? So if the 3 questions that appears on the presentation on the screen, it's yes, it means the matter falls within our mandate. But if the answers to 3 questions, it's no, it means it does not fall within our mandate, and that complaint will be rejected. We won't proceed with a review, unfortunately. So the other thing, on the 3 question, if one of the question it's no, even if the first 2, or maybe 1 and 3, or 2 and 3 are yes, it means the matter does not fall within our mandate. So we are going to reject that complaint. So in order for the complaint to fall within our mandate, it has to be yes to all three questions. Because when we do the review, we look whether the complaint is against SARS, it relates to Tax Act or Service Administrative or Procedural. So if that is not there, unfortunately, we are going to reject. The matter does not fall within our mandate. After that, we go to step number 2. I spoke about the identify systemic register or list. I spoke about the systemic issues. If you look under the screen that's appearing from your side or the slide that's appearing, you will see there is a compelling circumstances. I will start by that before I go to the questions. So if you look at the compelling circumstances, number 1, we have the complaint has been identified as a systemic. Here we refer to the issues which the Office of the Tax Ombud has identified it as systemic. So if that matter that you want to bring to our attention fall within that register, we will review the complaint even if we did not exhaust. Number 2, referring to the taxpayer back to CMO will cause undue hardship. There are situations where the taxpayer has issues with SARS, and if that issue does not get attention as soon as possible, it might end up causing undue hardship. Undue hardship we refer to any negative outcome based on the SARS decision on that matter. For example, if it's a company which relies on VAT refund, for example, to fund the operating expenses, obviously, if the refund is not paid, the company is going to suffer. They might end up closing down, or they might not have money to pay their employees. So you can give such reasons to say, you know what, I have a compelling circumstances. If this is not happening or it's not going to be done, it's going to cause undue hardship. So we will look at that matter. The other one is referring the taxpayer back to CMO will not resolve the issue within a reasonable time. Here, for example, we refer to the issue where maybe the taxpayer has been engaging SARS, trying to resolve some of the issues he submitted maybe more than 5 years ago or more than 3 years ago, but he's not getting any assistance from SARS, or SARS is delaying to finalize that matter. So if you come to us and we do our review on that, we look at the complaint, or maybe you do give us that reasons to say, you know what, I've been communicating with SARS for more than 3 years or for more than 5 years, and I'm not getting any response. So when we look at the review, we might end up reviewing it and looking at the period that has lapsed and sending it to back. There are other issues that we know that if you send it the taxpayer back to SARS, you can see they might say, for example, if SARS incorrectly invalidated the objection, if we send you back to SARS, they might say your objection was finalized, even though it was not finalized correctly. Procedurally, they were wrong. So in such circumstances, we might say, okay, sending the taxpayer back to SARS might not yield any. End up doing such complaint. So I'm going back to the step number 2 after you have exhausted the SARS. Step number 2, after you have exhausted the SARS process or there are compelling circumstances. So in this stage, first we have done the test to see whether the complaint falls within our mandate or not. And now we go to the second stage where we want to do the second test. The second test, we check whether you have launched the complaint, you have exhausted the SARS internal complaint resolution mechanism, or there are any compelling circumstances not for us to refer you back to SARS. So we will ask ourselves the 2 questions. So the first question we ask ourselves, did the taxpayer lodge a complaint with the CMO and has the turnaround time lapse? So if you did not lodge a complaint with the CMO, or sometimes you find that you have a query, it's still within 21 business days. If it's a query that SARS has a prescribed turnaround time of 21 working days, you approach the CMO prematurely. Obviously, that case, even if you approach CMO prematurely, CMO will tell you that you did approach us, but your case is a premature case, or they might end up rejecting the case. So the answer to this question, if the answer is no, the taxpayer did not exhaust, what do? We go to the second question, because this one we have to go step by step. We first look at the exhaustion, and then we go to compelling. Are there any compelling circumstances? As I explained that we do have the list of compelling circumstances. If the answer to that is no, unfortunately, even if the complaint falls within our mandate, that complaint we cannot review it. It's going to be rejected. It will depend. with the outcome when we look at the complaint? Is it something that we can do recommendation or to the taxpayer to go back to SARS and do what's necessary or what's required in order for SARS to assist with the resolution of that query or complaint or the matter that the taxpayer submitted to SARS? So if these two questions, both of them, we started with number one, if the taxpayer has exhausted and the answer is yes, we will proceed to step number 3. It means that the complaint falls within our mandate. The taxpayer has exhausted. Also, if we go to question number 2, let's take you didn't exhaust, and then we go to question number 2, where it says, are there any compelling circumstances? If there are compelling circumstances, it means the matter falls within our mandate. The taxpayer, even if he or she did not exhaust, but there are compelling circumstances, we will proceed to step number 3. So normally these steps, when we only do it once the taxpayer has submitted the complaint to us, because obviously when you submit the query and it's not a valid complaint, we cannot follow this process. We only follow this after we have do the test. We check that, okay, this complaint is a valid complaint, and then we start with these steps. So now we move to step number 3, where we check, are there any limitation on this complaint? These are something which the Office of the Tax Ombud, if the taxpayer brought the case under this limitation, we cannot review such complaints. So what are the questions are we asking ourselves? There are 4 questions if you see on the screen. The first one that we ask ourselves when we receive the complaint is the taxpayer asking us to review a legislation or tax policy. What do we mean by the legislation or tax policy? Legislation, we refer to, it can be a tax act, can be tax administration act, it can be a customs act, or any act that's administered by SARS. So if you are not happy about certain provision of the act, and then you come to us, you want us to intervene and to get SARS amend that act, unfortunately, we cannot review that because we are not allowed. It falls within the limitation. Tax policies, there are policies which is issued by the National Treasury, and some tax policies are from SARS. So if you want us to review such policies, like for example, there is a policy from SARS to say, if the system identify any risk engine, they withhold the refund. It's either it's selected for verification, or after the verification is finalized, maybe they can select the refund itself for audit. So if you come to us and you are not happy with that process, unfortunately, we cannot intervene on that. And then the second question we ask ourselves is the taxpayer asking us to review SARS practice general prevailing. So this one, there's a standard processes or processes which SARS it's following when they assist the taxpayers. So if, for example, now they have a process where a taxpayer, if you want to visit the SARS branch, that's the general practice prevailing now. So you don't want to first follow that process. You want to come to us to say, you know what, I'm not happy with the general practice part. And then unfortunately we'll tell you it falls within our limitation. There's nothing we can do. It's either you follow the process and lodge a complaint with SARS. This third question is the taxpayer asking us to review a matter subject to objection and appeal. As matter subject to objection and appeal, it is your responsibility. It is your right as a taxpayer. When you are aggrieved by an assessment, instead of running to us to lodge a complaint, look at your rights as a taxpayer. You do have a right to follow the dispute resolution by submitting the notice of objection or by submitting an appeal, depending on the stage where the matter is at the dispute resolution process. So if you come to us without following that, we will not review because it will fall within our recommendations or our limitation. I'm sorry about it. The fourth question is the taxpayer asking us to review a matter before the tax court? So here we refer to the matter where the taxpayer have submitted. I'm sorry about it. Just give me a second. The matter went to appeal process and there was no agreement or consensus between the taxpayer and the SARS. So usually when you are on the dispute resolution process, you fail to agree or to have a consensus on the objection, for example. The second step is to go to appeal. The appeal, it has its own rules. it also has its own turnaround time. For example, you submit a notice of an appeal within the prescribed turnaround time, and they found that it's a valid appeal. They issue the suitability letter, you go for ADR, and there you don't agree. Because you have your own view, you have your own interpretation, you explain to SARS, SARS doesn't want to take your explanation, or they are not in agreement with you. Then that matter, it's either you refer it to tax court or tax board, depending on the amount on dispute. So if the matter is referred to tax court and you want us to intervene, unfortunately, when we look at the limitation, we might not review. We are not going to review anyway, because there are limitations. So when we receive the query, we did the step number 1, we did the step number 2. Number 1 is does a matter fall within our mandate? Number 2, does the taxpayer has exhausted, or are there any compelling circumstances? Number 3, it's a limitation where we are. So if the answer to the 4 questions is yes, any of the 4 questions it's yes, unfortunately, that matter will be rejected, because even if the matter falls within our mandate, you have exhausted, there are compelling circumstances, but the limitation apply. We cannot proceed with a review on the complaint. So we are going to reject the complaint based on the limitation, that there are limitations applied to your matter. So if the answer to the questions is no, it means your matter does not fall within the limitation. So limitation does not apply to your complaint. So we will proceed to step number 4. So we will proceed to step number 4. Under step number 4, we have done all the tests, we have checked, we found that, yeah, it falls within our mandate. Maybe you have exhausted, there are compelling circumstances. Some cases we find that they have both, you have exhausted and there are compelling circumstances. So now we are at this stage, which is a stage number 4, or step number 4, where we are going to review the complaint. How do we review the complaint? We determine the facts of the complaint by considering the taxpayer and the SARS action. How do we do that? First, we look at the information provided by the taxpayer to the Office of the Tax Ombud, and then we check what is it that the taxpayer is complaining about. What is it that the taxpayer do? Did the taxpayer adhere to the time frame? Did the taxpayer follow or adhere to the request from SARS and follow the process? So we will go through each and everything to see what the taxpayer did and what is the responses from SARS. What is the action from the SARS? So that it will assist us to determine whether the taxpayer has a valid complaint against SARS or not. Some other complaint, you find that it falls within our mandate, you have exhausted, there are compelling circumstances, and limitation does not apply. However, when we check there, you no longer have a valid reason. There is a reason us to terminate the complaint. We are going to terminate such complaint. For example, with the cases that we usually terminate, you find out the taxpayer has an issue with SARS. Maybe there's a refund due to SARS. The verification is still in progress. The refund is not yet paid. You submit the complaint to us. But when we reach this stage where we are checking the fact from SARS and from what you submitted to us, and then we found that the verification is finalized, the refund has been paid, we do have a valid reason to terminate, even though you have met all the steps. When we check all the steps, you are fine, we can review that complaint. Unfortunately, we are not going to review it. We are going to terminate that complaint, and we will give you the reason why we are terminating such complaint. So in a case where the matter, you have a valid complaint against us and the matter is not resolved, we will determine the best way to facilitate the resolution, and we will refer the matter to SARS with recommendations. So our recommendation usually, it also based on the facts that we gathered during the review. So we deal with different types of complaints, as I indicated before. What we handle at the Office of the Tax Ombud is the complaint relating to service, procedural, administrative matter. I will start with the service. Service SARS has a service charter where they committed to say if the taxpayer has the issue of a refund, we give the taxpayer maybe let's take there's no verification on that refund. They will say we give taxpayer 3 working days to release the refund. So if SARS failed to do that, there's a service failure, element of a service failure on the SARS side. So that complaint, if you come to us, we will look at it because it relates to service failure from the SARS side. Under service also, we have conduct of the SARS personnel and also the attitude towards the taxpayers. So such complaint, when you receive it, you don't get the proper service, you receive attitude from the SARS personnel. Such matter falls under service issues, so it falls within our mandate also. Procedural, for example, we refer to the standard operating procedure matter where SARS failed to adhere to their own standard operating procedure. If the SOP at SARS or standard operating procedure say, in order for SARS to finalize that verification, you have to submit the supporting documents, and they have 21 working days to resolve that. So if you have adhere from your side as a taxpayer, you submitted the supporting documents, but SARS, it's taking time to finalize the query. And then there's a procedural issue. It means SARS is failing procedurally to address your query or to make sure that your verification is finalized and the refund it's paid on time. Thirdly, we have administrative matter. Here, administratively, we refer to the administration which SARS need to do when they have the matter. If the Act says after SARS have finalized the verification, they need to issue the letter to the taxpayer. That letter must be drafted and must be issued with the reason of the assessment and sent to the taxpayer. So if that letter is not there, you don't know what was the decision taken by SARS. That matter can fall under a procedural and also administrative issue, because administratively, SARS have failed to finalize your matter correctly or by communicating the outcome with you as a taxpayer. What the OTO cannot do, it goes back to the previous slides where I was doing the step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, our internal processes. Here we just highlighted what our limitations. So it's a legislation or tax policy. I did explain before what do we refer to when we say legislation or tax policy. SARS policy, I give example of the refund also. It can fall under SARS policy because they do have a policy to say if your refund, if they identify or they suspect there's anything or risk engine or the risk on your assessment, they use the risk engine to identify those assessments. So it's a SARS policy, it's there, which we cannot review. If you come to us say change this policy, unfortunately we cannot change. So a matter subject to objection and appeal, I have explained which matters we refer to the matter subject to objection and appeal. And then a decision of or proceed in or a matter before the court. Here, usually, mostly we look at the tax court and the tax board, and also the high court. There are issues where you find that you went to the tax court and the tax board, but still, you don't get any joy. Or there are issues which you submitted to SARS. Unfortunately, that matter or decision taken to SARS does not form part of the dispute resolution process, which means the decision taken, you cannot object against that decision. So in such situation, the matter will be before the court, because if you are not in agreement and the matter is before the court, or it has been taken to the court, or you take it to the high court and you come to us, unfortunately, we cannot intervene to such matter. What happens after we have accepted your complaint? Okay, I'm not going to explain the same thing that I explained before, because usually those are the processes that we follow after after we receive the complaint, and then we will accept. On step number 4, I highlighted that if the taxpayer has a valid complaint against SARS, we will facilitate the resolution of the case by making a recommendation. It's either to SARS or it's either to SARS or the taxpayer, usually to the taxpayer if we are not going to take the matter to SARS. So in a case where we accepted the complaint, we will draft and those recommendations will be sent to the Complaint Management Office at SARS. The Complaint Management Office is the office that manages all the complaints. So what they do, after we have sent our recommendation, they will assign those recommendations. They are not going to resolve the matter because they manage all the complaints that are being sent to SARS or receiving from the taxpayers. So they will send those recommendations to the relevant business unit in SARS to resolve. For example, if it's the issue of a delayed refund, there is a division or unit in SARS that deals with the refund. It's account maintenance, for example. They will send our recommendations to accounts to resolve or to implement our recommendation. So after we have accepted the case and sent this recommendation to SARS, we give SARS 15 business days to implement our recommendation. Usually, if they fail to implement it within 15 working days, they have to give us the valid reason why they can't. And what we also do from our side, if we see that SARS is failing to implement within 15 working days, we do an escalation. We do have an internal process, and we also send it to the managers at SARS, because at the first stage, we have our liaison officers who deals with the complaints from the Office of the Tax Ombud. After the complaint is finalized, maybe within or after 15 working days, the Complaint Management Office, the CMO, will send us the closeout report. Before we communicate with the taxpayer, what do? We go through our recommendation and check the closeout report whether whatever that we recommended, SARS have implemented it. If we found that SARS did not implement our recommendation, then it means our matter is not resolved. We will reject that closeout report, and then we will request SARS to relook at the complaint. And then example of the complaints that we receive from the taxpayers or complaints. Delay in the payment of a refund where SARS places the stopper. This one is similar to a recalled refund, because usually when SARS recalled a refund, maybe for further verification or for audit purpose on that refund, they will place a stopper so that the refund doesn't go out. So this too, it's similar, because when we receive it, you find that there is a stopper. SARS is blocking the refund to go out. So if you have complied, you have done everything that you are required to do. I will give example with the special stopper that they usually put under the normal income taxpayers. So on the income tax, they will put special stopper. So they put different reason why the refund cannot be released. So they will inform you as a taxpayer when you make a follow-up, what is it that you need to do? Some, they will say, go and verify the banking details and inform us. Some, they will say, it was recalled by the head office recalled refund. So you have to send an email to communicate with them. They will tell us the reason why that refund it's withheld or recalled, and then they will give you a turnaround time. Usually from the Office of the Tax Ombud, we give them 21 working days to release these refunds. If it's not, you can approach us, and then we will do the recommendation. Obviously, we are going to do the investigation to see how best we can assist you, or maybe to also check what could be the reason SARS recalled the refund and what are the remedies available for you. So the other complaint that we also receive about SARS is the incorrect allocation of a payment. Incorrect allocation, it can be maybe you use the correct reference number, everything, but SARS, instead of allocating it to the correct period, they put it to the incorrect period. The other one, maybe you use the old reference number, which might result to the refund getting allocated to the same period, the previous case, where there was no outstanding debt on that period. So we do receive such complaint where the refund is not allocated to the correct period. The other one is non-adherence by SARS to dispute resolution regulations. Here we look at the time frame, incorrect invalidating of the objection. So the time frame, when you submit an objection, it is your right, as I indicated before, that you have a right to submit the objection if you are aggrieved by the system. It has its own turnaround time. Usually SARS, when they issue the outcome of the verification of the assessment, they will stipulate to you how many days you have to submit the objection if you are not in agreement. So I will urge everyone to say, even though here we are saying complaints about SARS, we also encourages the taxpayer to also adhere to the time frame, because it affects both sides. There is a time frame which SARS need to adhere to, and there's a time frame you as a taxpayer that you need to adhere to. So please stick to time frame. If they say you have 20 days to submit the objection, let's adhere to that and submit the objection on time. The other one that we receive is an incorrect invalidation of objection. Here, when you submit the objection, you are aggrieved by the assessment. You decided to go for dispute resolution process by submitting an objection. So what's going to happen? SARS has its own internal processes when they receive the objection. So the first step, they have to validate the objection to make sure that the objection that you submitted is valid. What do they do that? The reason for that, they want to make sure that you follow the process. And how do they do that? The first step, they check whether you have used the correct form, which is a prescribed form for notice of objection, if you want to object against the assessment for income tax. So there is a prescribed form which the taxpayer is required to submit. So they will check that. Did you complete the correct codes? Did you use the correct figures? Everything, is it correct? So if everything is submitted on time, you use the correct codes, you completed the information where it's supposed to be, they will say that objection is valid. So sometimes you find that you submit the objection on time, you did everything, you put the code, but instead of, okay, the objection is valid, they go to the next stage where they check the merits of the matter. Some cases you find that SARS will go and check the merits of the matter. So after they did the check the merits, their findings, and they found that maybe they are required to request more information. Instead of requesting, they go back and invalidate the objection. So that will be incorrect invalidation of the objection. They're supposed to follow the process correctly. The dispute rules, it's there to guide them how to do things. So the other complaints about SARS is SARS failure to respond to taxpayers' request. It can be a SOP, it's a suspension of payment, a compromise, waiver of penalties and interest. So SARS does have a turnaround time of 21 working days. You submitted a suspension, you have a debt, you are owing, you expected SARS to implement your suspension of payment because maybe you have submitted the objection also against the same assessment which has a tax debt. SARS is delaying to finalize that. So these are some of the example of the cases that we receive from a taxpayer. And then a compromise is when you have a debt and you see that, you know what, this debt is a valid debt and I don't have money to pay that. But instead of me paying the 100% of that, I can offer them 10%. I'm just giving an example. You are owing 100 Rand and then you say, I cannot pay 100 Rand because I can't afford. And you have proved that due to your financial condition, you cannot afford to pay such amount that they need. And then you do a compromise. They have a turnaround time of 90 business days to finalize that compromise. So you can request them to compromise certain or part of the outstanding debt. So if SARS is failing to respond, they are failing to adhere to their the service charter. It's some of the cases that we receive. Also the penalties and interest, they do have a turnaround time of 21 working days to finalize the request submitted by the taxpayer. We also have a profile hijacking. Mostly of profile hijacking, some it's because of the ID was changed, or maybe the e-filing profile was hijacked, submitted information, or the return submitted with the fraudulent information was done. Some you find that you have a refund, they hijack your profile, they change the banking details, submit the fraudulent banking details. We do receive such complaint. And then revision of assessment without reason provided to the taxpayer. Here we refer to the matter where maybe you're not owing anything. All of a sudden, without any communication, you find that SARS have raised the revised assessment without providing you with the reasons. You as a taxpayer, Paja, it's there, it protects you. You have a right to that information. So whatever decision that SARS is making, they need to communicate with you. They cannot just revise your assessment and you only learn about it when you receive a call from debt management to say you are owing SARS. SARS need to inform you. So we do receive such complaints where you find that SARS issued the revised assessment without providing reason to the taxpayer or without communicating with the taxpayer. The other example of cases we receive SARS not making a decision with documents submitted. So here we refer to the taxpayer where he submitted his query. SARS requested additional information. You submit the additional information. Maybe it's your return. You submitted a return. SARS requested the supporting documents. You submit, but they failed to make a decision with the information that you submitted to SARS. So we do receive such complaint from taxpayers. The other one, refund paid into incorrect bank account, it can be due to profile hijacking or identity theft, different reasons. We do receive complaints from taxpayer where from their side, they updated the banking details, they did everything as required, but instead of a refund goes into to the correct bank account, SARS paid the refund into incorrect bank account. So we do receive such complaint. The other one, delay in issuing a tax clearance certificate. SARS has a turnaround time of 5 working days to issue a tax clearance certificate. So if they are delaying without any reasons, you can come to us and submit a complaint to us. SARS is not adhere to their standard time frame or to their service charter. So we do receive such complaint. However, if you request for tax clearance certificate and SARS request additional information, the turnaround time of 5 working days changes because now they have 21 working days to finalize that. So we have to understand that the 5 days is where you don't owe anything, they don't want anything from you. But 21 days is when they requested the additional information, and 21 working days will start from the date you submit the additional information. It doesn't start from where you requested, because other taxpayer, they will say, but I submitted all my request and all the information on this day. Now it's over 21 working days. When we check on the system, we found that SARS requested additional information, maybe which you submitted, and it's still within 21 working days. So those are some of the complaints that we receive from taxpayers about SARS. Reasons for rejecting the complaint. We have highlighted few reasons for rejecting the complaint. Complaint falling within the limitation. You will remember on the internal process when I explained, I think it was on step number 3, where we spoke about the limitation, that there are 4 questions that we normally ask. So if you submit a complaint that falls within the limitation, that complaint will be rejected. Not following SARS complaints management process. I have indicated to you that when the taxpayer wants to lodge a complaint, he or she must first exhaust the SARS internal complaint resolution mechanism. So if you did not follow that and you come to us and there are no compelling circumstances on that case will be rejected. Lodging complaint with OT or prematurely. Prematurely, it's we do have different types of prematurely complaint. It's either maybe you have approached the CMO today, within 21 working days before it lapses, you come to us. That complaint will be prematurely. Or maybe you submitted your query or request for anything to SARS. Within 21 working days, you come to us. That complaint will be a prematurely because you, as a taxpayer, you are expected to give SARS a reasonable time frame to deal with your complaints. So the other one, it's not adhering to SARS request, e.g., to submit specific documents, update banking details, not cooperative. So here we refer to the case where or you are not cooperative. Or maybe SARS, you have a refund that is due to you. SARS asks you to update the bank details you don't want to do. You come to us, we will reject that complaint to say, SARS have requested you to do 1, 2, 3. So please adhere to SARS request. And it's always advisable that taxpayers or people must visit the SARS website, get the service charter so that you familiar. Other queries, you will wait for more than 21 working days, only to find that that query, if you have submitted, SARS only has 5 days to resolve. So please familiarize yourself with the service charter on the SARS website so that when you have a query, you know what to do. The last one on this reason for rejection or rejecting the complaint, it's not noting appeal after 75 days from notice of disallowance. This one, I want to remind you once again, it's very much important that we familiarize ourselves with the dispute resolution process. SARS, when they make a decision on assessment, they always issue the letter. If you did not find the letter or you don't find the communication, follow up with SARS. Ask SARS to communicate that information with you so that you make a distinction or a decision whether you want to object or it's a matter subject to objection or appeal. So if it's a matter subject to objection and appeal, obviously you have to follow the dispute resolution process by submitting the notice of objection. If SARS disallowed or partially allowed your objection, the next step, if still you are not in agreement, is to northern appeal. And you only have 75 business days. Unfortunately, on this one, SARS does not have a discretion to extend the 75 business days. For example, if day one, you receive the outcome of objection and you are not in agreement with that outcome, you waited for 75 days. If you go to SARS on the 76 days, unfortunately, SARS is not going to accept. And the SARS system is going to block you to northern appeal. So please adhere to dispute resolution timeframe. Because once you fail to do that, the consequences is going to be too high, because that assessment will become final and you won't be able to appeal. It's either you go to High Court, which is going to cost you lots of money to get the attention from the High Court. And then recommendations. Recommendations, after we accepted the complaint, I have indicated previously that we will facilitate the resolution by making recommendations to SARS. So if we are not going to accept the complaint, or we are not going to review the complaint, we usually do recommendation to the taxpayer. If it's the matter which the taxpayer maybe need to submit something to SARS, or is the matter which the taxpayer need to adhere to or to follow the dispute resolution process, we will do recommendation and recommend to the taxpayer to say adhere to 1, 2, 3 based on the communication that was issued by SARS to you. So our recommendation after we have sent to SARS, they're not binding to SARS, and they are neither binding to the taxpayer, which means you cannot use our recommendation to the court of law. You cannot go to court to say, yeah, the Office of the Tax Ombud have made recommendation, so you need to adhere to that. Unfortunately, our recommendation are not binding, so you cannot do that. You cannot use it to the court of law. But if our recommendations are not accepted by SARS or by the taxpayer, reason for such decision must be provided to the Tax Ombud within 30 business days of notification of the recommendations. And such information may be included in the Ombud's report to the Minister of Finance or to the Commissioner of SARS. And then the mistakes that usually the taxpayer do when they submit the complaint, or a mistake general that they do, it's either to us when they submit the complaint or when they submit their query to SARS. So the first mistake is a late submission. It can be, usually it's a late submission of requested information, or late submission of a return, or late submission of any documents that's requested by SARS. So please, or even late submission of your new information that has changed from your personal information that SARS is holding. So you have a prescribed time frame. Let's adhere to that and submit the required information to SARS. The other one is a delayed payment. If you are owing for SARS, they will stipulate to you when do they expect the payment. If you are not in agreement with the assessment, which resulted to the outstanding tax debt, as I indicated before, follow the dispute resolution process and adhere to the dispute resolution time frame. It's very much important to adhere to that, because once you missed that process or that opportunity to exercise your right, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do, and there's nothing SARS can do. Those assessments which resulted to tax debt, you find that it's prescribed. And once it's prescribed, it means you have to pay the outstanding debt. And some of those debt we are paying, if we have acted on time, we should have avoided making a payment to SARS. We should have get those assessments corrected on time. The other one, not adhering to SARS dispute resolution rules. This one I have been saying a lot to say, let's adhere to dispute resolution rules, because once we miss out, the consequences are big. Some, they end up losing lots of money because of the failure to adhere to dispute resolution rules. The other one, incomplete submission of a complaint form. It can be a complaint form, it can be a form to SARS. From our side, if your return is incomplete, we will reject the complaint, or we won't capture the complaint. We will inform you that your complaint form that you completed to us, it's incomplete. Maybe that you didn't sign. Some other cases that we receive, the taxpayer does not give us the complaint summary, does not say anything. which makes our life difficult at the Office of the Tax Ombud to review that complaint or to look at the complaint. So we will communicate with you to say, correct your complaint form, resubmit to us. However, if you make a mistake, you submit the incomplete return to SARS. Other returns you might benefit, but SARS will obviously going to review. But other returns you might make a mistake where the error to fix it, it can cost you an arm and a leg to get SARS to fix that. I will give example with the VAT return. VAT return, once you make a mistake on the input VAT, you under declare and you wanted to put a higher amount. To get SARS to correct that, because the system will not allow you to submit the request for correction. So you have to bear in mind that when you submit, just make sure that whether you submit the complaint to us, whether you submit the return to SARS, the return is complete and correct information is completed. The last one on this one is not submitting supporting documents. It's the same as the previous one where I indicated that's non-adherence to SARS request. So if we, as the Office of the Tax Ombud, we receive your complaint and we are unable to review your complaint, we communicate with you to say, we need certain information in order for us to finalize that. Please do so, submit the required information so that we are able to review your complaint. But other taxpayers, they don't submit that. Even to SARS, you find that your assessment is under review. SARS have requested additional information and you don't submit. How do you expect SARS to assist or to get your assessment finalized? So please adhere to that and please avoid those mistakes, because it might cost you to get whatever mistake you made to correct that. So the reporting from our side, when we accepted the complaints and we send it to SARS, the SARS has to provide us, the Office of the Tax Ombud, a bi-weekly report on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, on the cases that are not resolved. I'm referring to the cases which SARS is failing to finalize within 15 working days, and maybe they have a valid reason. Some, maybe it's a taxpayer's failure to provide what SARS is requesting. So usually they give us bi-weekly, we get a report to say, so and so, this is what we did. We are still waiting for 1, 2, 3, or this one will be finalized on this date. Because there are cases where even where there is an ADR process, we have to wait for the legal at SARS to issue the date for ADR hearing. So if that is not done, even if we see that SARS is out of the time frame, we have given them 15 working days, that need to take place in order for the matter to be resolved. So they will give us a report to say, maybe on case number 1, 2, 3, we have done so and so, the hearing will take place on this day. So we have to wait for them. So those cases sometimes takes longer for SARS to finalize. The second report that the Office of the Tax Ombud sent to the Minister of Finance and also to SARS Commissioner. The last report is an annual report. This one goes to the Minister of Finance. Okay. As I indicated that I will share my contact details. If you look at the screen, our contact details is 0800 662 837, or for the international callers, they can call us at 012 431 9105. We do have a fax, but since we introduced the online submission and also downloading of the complaint form, when you call us, you want to know the complaint, you can call us on those 2 numbers and then we'll email to you the complaint form, and then you can submit to the email that is appearing on the screen, which is complaints@taxombud.gov.za. And then our website is www.taxombud.gov.za. So if you want more information regarding our office, you can access our website. And we also have taxpayers' rights and taxpayers' obligation. So if you visit our website, you will see all that information. As I also indicated before, that our office is situated at second floor, Main Lane corner, 87 Frigate de Beria Street, Main Lane in Pretoria. Our building is next to Main Lane Mall, next to where the taxis are parking on the other side. The other side, I'm referring to Louis Botha Street. So if you go to that street, you will see our building is on the opposite side of the mainland mall. So we do have newsletters that we issue. You can subscribe for our newsletter. So every month when we issue the newsletter, we can email it to you to see what are the cases we are dealing with, what are the issues that's affecting the Office of the Tax Ombud, or the news about the Office of the Tax Ombud. So the link is there on the screen. I can ask Lebu to share these slides with you if you need it. This brings to the end of our presentation. Is there any question? From my side, I'm not seeing any hand. Okay, I will start with, okay, it's only Muraro. Muraro, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. For me, on my side, it's not a question, but an opportunity to share our appreciation for the information that you've shared. I think for most people that have attended this session, even the existence of the Office of the Tax and Ombud was something that we are not aware of. And this is information that we're going to use and also share with people that are in our circles, because when we think SARS and tax, it's something that is scary to think about. But the way that you're explaining it and showing that there are processes that we can follow, there's timelines. You also mentioned a service charter that is available on the website. So that is something that we're going to go and look for and familiarize ourselves so that we can be able to use the SARS and also text to our advantage. So thank you once again for this session. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Is there any other comment or any question? Okay, in the absence of any question, Ms. Muraro, I'm not sure if you are the program director of this session, because we have been waiting for Muraro. I'm not sure whether it was you or there's another Muraro that we are waiting.
It is I. So we
It's
had
you.
load shedding, and
Oh,
then the network.
okay. So what we did, you asked Lebu if we are going to record the presentation. Yes, the presentation, it is recorded. I will share the presentation with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, in the absence of any question, I don't see any hand. So from my side, I'm sorry about that, Urisani.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge that the session was very insightful. I was taking notes, and it would be good to have the slide shared. Maybe you will talk to Muraro so that she can direct that, and also so that we can be able to register for the email notification newsletter, and yeah, to see what more information we can have so that we can also share with other people. Thank you so much.
Okay, you are welcome, and thank you very much. I will arrange that. I will make sure that information is shared with you. Okay, is there any other one who wants to comment or to add anything? Okay, Muraro, I think this brings to the end of my presentation. I'm not sure if you did receive my name. My name is Obedient Chauke. So if you have any question, you can talk to Lebu. If it's there any information that you need from me, I will be able to share with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we did say that Obedient Chalke will be doing the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see there's a question from, I think it's Sangwani Mikateko. Okay, as I indicated, everything will be sent to Moraro. I will ask Lebu to share the link with Moraro. So Moraro will, I'm sure she will distribute to everyone who's attended the meeting, even those who failed, who did not make it to attend our meeting due to different reasons. She will share with you. Right, colleagues, thank you very much for making your time. I know you had a lot sharing. There's a lot of things that's going on. Thank you for making time to come and listen to the Office of the Tax Ombud when I do the presentation. Have enjoy your evening. Enjoy your evening.
And you too.
So, nanga Tshivenḓa vari vha na ḓuvha ḽavhuḓi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.